Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another OGCA installment webinar. This one being mental well-being in construction. Now, for those of you who have participated in webinars before, you'll know that Corin Roth is a familiar face. She's a returning participant in these webinars. Corin is the manager of mental health and well-being for MedCore Canada. Now, MedCore is we have an affiliation with them through an affinity program, and the affinity program, it allows for kind of boots on the ground, first line of response when it comes to dealing with mental health. And we're going to spend some time this morning in discussing mental health and wellness and mental illness as well. And I think it's important for people to understand the difference between them. I do want to welcome everyone for participating today. The format today is more or less, once again, a fireside chat, a discussion. Any questions that you have, please put them into either the question and answer section or the chat. We're happy to address them live as we're speaking. I do want, for the record, the background that I have. Why do I have palm trees and a beautiful, kind of like beach setting? I've always noted whenever I'm on one of these webinars that it's in essence for my mental well-being. This is one of these things because, we're in offices and whatnot. And through Zoom, you're allowed to, change your background. This is where I'd like to be. How's that? And so this is why it gives me some solace and a bit of reprieve. So it is a mental, and this is kind of like a tool that you can use. And I know that Corin will get into it more often, but by way of introduction, I think I should introduce myself for those of you who don't know who I am. My name is Giovanni Cautillo. I'm the president for the OGCA, which is the Ontario General Contractors Association, and the chief operating officer, and a huge proponent for mental wellness. I think that if you're going to encapsulate fit for duty and you don't have the component of mental wellness, you are actually missing out on a vital component. Because think about it, everyone is you're always thinking about what you take into your body and your physical health. You're going out for walks, you're working out, you're exercising, but what about the space from your neck up? No one thinks about that, and that has to be exercised, and that has to be looked after, and all of that. So it's a vital component for fit for duty, and that's how it ties into construction. That's why it is such an important component of construction. And like we do in construction, we normally have a safety moment where we stop and we reflect upon something that, be it a potential hazard or, something that, we want people to be mindful of when they're going into a site. I would like for us to institute today a mental health moment. And so seeing as how I'm really not the qualified individual to talk about that, I'm going to turn this over to Corin so that you could lead us off with a mental health moment. Corin?
I love it. This is fantastic. So Giovanni, you just touched on it, right? It's all about being safe. I mean, ultimately, we want our people to go home safely at the end of the day, no matter what industry we're in. Today, we're talking construction. The work that the people do day to day is strenuous. It's physical. It can be a mental challenge for certain people. And we know that if people show up to the job feeling distracted, maybe they don't have someone to talk to about stress going on in their lives, things going on with them, they're not as focused, they're not as productive, and ultimately they're not as safe on the job. So having someone to talk to, whether that be a family member, a friend, a mental health professional, a colleague, clergy, I don't care who it is, as long as we have somebody that we can share the truth of how we're feeling and unload a little bit, give us some perspective. That is when we kind of take a little bit of that control back, let's say, over whatever situation it is that we're dealing with, and that is potentially distracting for us. So that would be the mental health moment, I think, that I would like to share, is find somebody to talk to. And if you don't have somebody to talk to, there are plenty of resources out there we can connect you with.
So I think we can also use the term venting.
Yes.
And I like to, because again, I'm going to use the construction vernacular here, and
Yes.
venting sometimes, people will refer to as that, oh, you're just complaining. No, sometimes it actually, by venting, you're actually highlighting something that needs to be highlighted.
Yeah.
I think that now for the audience members here, Corinne's another province. She's not in Ontario, hence why it's 9 o'clock in the morning for her over there. But in Ontario, we just over the weekend we had a crazy storm to the point where things were felled over and a lot of property damage. And there's up until just last night, a number of inhabitants didn't have power yet.
Right.
And so like that causes angst. And on top of everything else that you have to worry about, you now have to deal with insurance, and you have to deal with, and so that could weigh on your head as you go to work. That could be, kind of like just this burning thing, kind of an app working in the background, right? Constantly gnawing at you, and it's distracting.
Yes.
Right. And that distraction could then lead to an accident because you're thinking about, this tree fell down, knocked out half my house. I had to tarp it up over the weekend. I hope we have power, et cetera, et cetera. When is the adjuster going to come out? When is insurance going to happen? Blah, 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 blah. And all of this could lead to that split second, not necessarily lapse in judgment, but your focus shifts.
Yeah.
And if you're doing something on a construction site that could be precarious, that could be the difference between you having an accident or not having an accident. And so, that's what fit for duty and being present, being in the moment are all about. And unfortunately, not like we have distractions constantly, right? We're constantly being bombarded by either external factors, internal factors. Anxieties are another thing, right? And if you tell me you're never anxious, I'm going to call you a liar.
Yep.
Because everyone to a certain degree is anxious about something, or unfortunately, perhaps maybe you get it, your kids are anxious, so therefore you're then anxious for them. And it's kind of like this endless cycle. And unless you get to, there's no release valve. And I think what Corin is talking about is that if you get to vent, you actually take the pressure off of you. And so, Corin, in your experiences, what, just a simple conversation, like, and I don't know if you have a quantitative evidence of this one, but how much does it alleviate from the stress of an individual? Is it small, medium, or large gain? When I get to talk to someone, when I get to tell you about what it is that's on my mind, is this something that alleviates the problem by a percentage, 10%, 20%, or like how does, what do you think?
Huge. It's absolutely huge. Yep. In my experience, seeing someone at the beginning of a session compared to the end is night and day sometimes. I can tell right away when somebody logs into a session if they just need a vent. And I think my record is 40 out of 45 minutes of a session, somebody went on a rant. And honestly, let's go. This is what I'm here for. And you can say the absolute truth of how you're feeling, because I don't hardly know you. I'm not your mother. I'm not your spouse. I'm not here to defend you. I'm here to give you a fresh perspective and really give you a safe space to share this stuff. But lots of times what I see in those people who are sharing that way is they kind of come full circle at the end. One, they have kind of unloaded it. And I feel like I kind of sit here and hold a little bit of that for them, right? They feel better having just said it. And lots of times they connect their own dots just by saying it out loud. They hear themselves say it, it becomes a reality for them, and they'll kind of come full circle on their end, which it's just a very, very cool thing for me to see. So I don't know that I could put a percentage to it, but I think out of all the sessions I've done, there are maybe 2 sessions I can recall that at the end of the session, the person was kind of maybe a little bit feeling better, like, thank you, I feel better talking. But most people are like, oh my gosh, major dots connected. And I have a plan on how I'm dealing. This is usually the thing that comes out of it is I can't change lots of times what the situation is, but I can change my perspective and my reaction to it. So that's what we kind of get to. Either they do it on their own or I help them. We kind of create a plan, and all of a sudden you can take that stress, set it over here until after work. And right now you're back to work, you're focused, you're productive, because you know you got a plan to, kind of a plan of attack.
you know what, and I'm assuming that you don't then internalize any of the stress that the individual is thrusting upon you. You're just there to be a sounding board and actually
Yep,
to kind of like almost a mirror to reflect.
totally. That's
And,
it. And I've got a fresh perspective and fresh eyes on it because I don't know them. Right? I hear all of the time from people who are just like, I don't want to talk to my husband about this work, my work stress anymore. He's tired of hearing it. Right? He just wants you to be doing better. And he's looking at you like, well, fix it then. But they don't know how to fix it. So they come to me. All right, well, maybe you need to manage your time better. Do you know how to set boundaries properly? Do you ever take a break during your workday, right? Do you make time for self-care? All those kind of strategies and stuff. And those simple, small changes can have the biggest impact in somebody's life.
so one of the easiest things that I've read in researching mental well-being and whatnot is breathing.
Yeah.
I've and it was like almost, you don't need to understand what meditation's all about. You don't
Oh,
need to. All you need to do is sit down and for a minute or so take a series of deep breaths, breathe
yeah.
in, hold for a second, and breathe out.
Yeah.
And during this time, and I've done this time and again, is envision like almost like white or lightness coming in, and then when I breathe out, like all the negativity or the blackness coming
Yes.
out type thing,
Yes.
right? The charred remains of whatever it was
Yeah.
that was affecting me,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, it's true. I actually just did this the other day. So I'm in Alberta. And honestly, when we have a really sunny 20-degree day in Alberta in May, it's like you take it full advantage of it. You know what I mean? And I was just in between sessions, I had 7 minutes and I thought I could feel, we were talking about anxiety. For me, I feel it in my chest. It feels like a heaviness. And I thought, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on with me? So I just looked at my calendar and I was like, oh, I've got a session with somebody. I know it's going to be a heavy one, right? This is a follow-up. This is going to be a heavy one. I got 7 minutes. So I went out on my back deck and I actually put my feet on the ground in the grass and just sat down kind of on my lowest step and just closed my eyes and felt the sun on my face. And that's exactly what I did. I got grounded. Okay. My bare feet in the grass, connect to my body and my breath. And all of a sudden, all the other stuff kind of just goes away for a few minutes. I just focused on my breathing, filled my lungs. I came back feeling so much better, recharged, ready to tackle that session. It ended up being a beautiful session. But it's those kinds of things. And it's interesting that you say that to me because I don't know how many men are open to breathing in the light and letting out, right? But this is what I love about you, Gio, is you're like, hey, you know what? I read it, I tried it, it worked for me, I'll share it. A lot of men can be quite opposed to some of these techniques. And I will just say to them, who's going to know if you tried it or not other than you? And if it doesn't work for you, fine, come back. We'll talk about something else that might work, but why not just give it a try?
And you know what, there are other alternatives to it. I've also read anecdotally again that you could hug a tree. It's the funny thing, but what
Yeah.
it is you envision it, you know, that negativity or whatever that the
Mm-hmm.
angst that you're feeling traveling into the tree and then into the roots and dissipating into the
Right.
earth. And it's one
Yep.
of these things where, you know, you think about carbon neutrality. Anyway, I thought it was, and I've tried it. That really, you know, it was okay, but it wasn't
Yep.
what I envisioned it. I found that the breathing really worked for me. But I think what I'm trying to get at is that you have alternatives.
Yes.
I also find, you
Exactly.
know, if I have a lot of angst or whatnot, the heavy bag really works for therapy. You know,
Yep.
you sit there
Yes.
and just unload on it. 3 minutes on the heavy bag,
Yep.
and you feel spent, but that it's gone from you. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yep.
just anyway. I do want to get into. I have I guess a question to start off the discussion. I know that we've touched on about a couple of points, but I want for the audience to understand, and I don't think it's a misconception. I just think that sometimes it's interesting that we talk about mental health and wellness, and I'm very cognizant of the terms,
Mm-hmm.
and then mental illness.
Yep. Yep.
So I want for you to kind of just offer up kind of like what are the differences between the two, because I think it's important for people to understand fully.
Absolutely. No, I think this is a great question and it's confused by a lot of people. So mental health is no different than physical health. We all have it. Okay. So some days our physical health, we are feeling strong, capable, ready to tackle the world. We're feeling on top of our game. And then some days physically we're not. We've got a stomach bug or we're right, whatever it is. Mental health is the exact same thing. Some days we're feeling like we've got this, feeling good about ourselves, positive outlook. And then there are days we're not, we're feeling down or we're feeling sad or we're feeling overwhelmed or we're anxious or whatever that is. And so it's just kind of a sliding scale of, you know, from say red to green. We're on it. We never leave it. We just kind of, pardon me, are on that sliding scale. That is mental health. We all have it. Mental illness, we do not all have. So mental illness actually is something that requires a diagnosis and treatment. So that's the difference. Typically, if someone requires a diagnosis, they need to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, which is very different than managing your mental health, which is what I do, managing the everyday, right? Where are you on that scale? Are you red? Are you green? How can we get you from red to green a little bit quicker? What tools can I teach you in order to get you there yourself so you don't require my help to do that, which is resilience really in a nutshell. So that's really the key difference is I think people interchange them, but it's really not true. The majority of people do not have a mental illness and require diagnosis or treatment. So they're two very different things.
And it's funny. There was a quote that I always refer back to it and said, if you don't make time for your wellness, and in this capacity, we'll insert the term mental wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness.
Yes.
And again, because if it builds up on you and you don't have that avenue where you can resort to, again, like you said, walking in the grass and all that stuff. And on that topic, we have a brilliant question from one of our health and safety experts.
Yes.
Mr. Mike Mancini. Mike writes, and he's not being sarcastic. He's being bang on. It's difficult to take your boots off on site. Is there anything that can help the guys on the front line? And guys and girls is what he's referring to.
Yes, of course. And I read that question when it popped up. It's brilliant, actually. And you're not wrong. Was it Michael?
Michael, yes.
Michael, yeah. You're not wrong at all. So you can get grounded with your boots on. Okay. All you need to do is say to the crew, hey guys, I need 5 minutes. And you go sit on the, edge of your truck. I don't know if you got a step or you find a chair or a step somewhere and you just sit, get your feet on the ground. Okay. And I was actually going to do this later, but if you're okay, Gio, I'll jump into it right now.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
It's a little bit of a tool that I like to share with people. And I actually did this with a woman who was really, really afraid of flying after COVID and they opened up and you could kind of fly again. It was her first flight in a couple of years. And she was so anxious about it. Well, she's not going to take her shoes off in the airplane.
And right? I'll thank her for that.
Yes, really not advisable. Right. But I said to her, you can do this technique. They'll just sit there and he can sit there on a construction or anyone can just get your feet flat on the floor. Okay. And then I don't know.
Hold on. Are we doing audience participation here? We're going to have everyone do this?
We totally can.
Okay. So everyone, we're going to do exactly what Corinne tells us to do.
Okay.
So sit, find a comfortable place. If you're driving, don't.
Don't. Just listen. Yeah, for sure. So first thing is uncross your legs, get your feet flat on the floor. I don't know about you guys, but I notice when I'm tense or I have stress in my life, between my shoulder blades and up my neck are really tight. And that is because when we're tense, our shoulders come up to our ears. Right. Okay, so drop your shoulders, get your shoulders down, drop them, feet on the floor. Take your hands and put them flat on your thighs, right above your knees there, and just close your eyes and breathe. Okay, so you're just going to breathe in for 4 seconds and out for 4 seconds. We'll do it again. Breathe in for 4 and out for 4. Okay. Did you find some quiet, some stillness there?
Well, I did.
I did, and I'm doing this virtually in front of however many people are going to watch this, right? What this does is it gets you connected to your body. Okay, I don't know about you, but I didn't have a bunch of other thoughts going on in my head in that moment. All I was doing was paying attention to my feet on the ground, my hands in my lap. I felt relaxed. I was just kind of feeding. You were talking about ignoring from the shoulders up. To me, this is like recharging your brain, recharging your heart, right? Physically, we're taking a rest, but mentally, we're taking a rest. We're just doing nothing but breathing. We're just recharging right now.
So it sounds to me like, again, when I do it, I feel like I'm almost getting rid of all the clutter, kind of like the static, the noise that's going on in your daily lives.
Exactly.
Between all the emails that we're flagging, we discussed this before everyone came on, and that you're nonstop. It's a relentless, and any job would be, but I think that I don't have the same exposure to risk that if I'm ignoring an email, as opposed to somebody who's walking on a site and there's multiple hazards. So I think what Corin just did was give us tools that, again, I hope that answers your question, Michael, but all it is it allows for almost a reset, decompression, lowering of the valve type thing, right?
You know what else I equate it to? Have you ever seen those phone chargers, like a lightning cord that you plug in and your phone is charged within, you know, like record speed? That's what I picture when I do those things for myself. So I'm lucky I get to work from home. I can go sit on my back step and enjoy the sun for 4 minutes and just breathe. For Michael on the job site, it looks different for him, but the benefits will be the same.
But it sounds to me that you don't even have to say it to anyone. You don't have to do it like, I'm going to walk away after, you know, you have your break, you're sitting there just having your coffee, you put your coffee down and you do it for, you know, a couple of seconds without even thinking. Now, is this something that we can incorporate into like a toolbox talk, something that we could really foster type thing? And I just wanted to make sure that it's not something that, you know, people may scoff at it, because, you know, again, there is still a certain stigma, a certain level of machismo on site and whatnot. But I think that even if you at least communicate it, it may be internalized by the vast majority of them, even if they don't say anything about it.
Totally. Right? And the thing about it is it's not just on the job. You can do that exact same thing, you know, after supper when you've had an argument with your spouse, or your teenage daughter just, you know, was not so nice to you. I'm not going to lie. I've actually.
Do you need to talk, Corin? I'm here for you.
I don't know. No, not today. I seem to be okay. But I've even done the similar thing during a meeting. I don't close my eyes, but you know, if the rest of the corporate team or whoever it is I'm on a meeting are kind of going on a thing, it doesn't have a whole lot to do with me. I actually just put my feet here and I put my hands like this on my lap and I'm just like,
you just zone out.
And nobody can tell. I'm still listening, but I'm just breathing and I can just tell I'm just getting that reset. I love that, what you called it, a reset. That's what I needed to do. Nobody can even tell I'm doing it.
So what you're doing is actually you're listening, but you're focusing on your breathing more so than you've actually switched perspective. So you made yourself the central point and the meeting, the background noise.
A little bit. You know what they're talking about doesn't have a whole lot to do with me anyway. So in that moment, it's fair to do so. Of course, I'm not going to do that right now when you and I are having a chat or, you know.
You know what though? I'm gonna try this at my next staff meeting. But anyway,
there you go.
So I do want to get back to the purpose of the meeting today, or the webinar, which is mental well-being in construction. And I think I would like you to talk to the audience about how to identify if someone actually needs help.
Yeah.
Right. Signs, flags, what to look for, because I can see if someone's limping. It's physical, right? I can see if there's blood or something, or if they're coughing, they're breathing heavy. These are all clear signs that someone's in distress.
Yeah.
How do I figure out if someone's in distress if their headspace is not right?
Yeah, that's totally it. So first of all, I think we just need to be aware of the people around us. Okay, so someone who is severely depressed is quite likely not going to be the person to raise their hand and say, I need some help, I'm not doing well. Okay, so it's up to us to really be paying attention to the people on our crew, the people in our office, the people that come into our space and our circle throughout the day, which is kind of keep an eye on them. So what that looks like to me is basic self-care is key. Sleeping, eating, right? Those kinds of things. If you see somebody come in who looks disheveled, let's say, I'm going to be politically correct here, right? They don't look like
so
they're taking care of themselves.
Your hair's in a mess, right?
Your hair's a mess. You maybe haven't showered in a few days. Okay, that can be definitely a red flag that somebody really is just not taking care of themselves. Okay.
Okay.
When they typically, not if it's unusual behavior for someone, but also things like withdrawing, right? They used to be the person in the staff meeting who was raising their hand and had lots to contribute. All of a sudden now are sitting back here with their arms kind of crossed and just not even cranky, but just disengaged, right? Maybe they used to come and eat in the staff room and now they'd rather sit at their desk, right? Doesn't mean that mentally they're struggling super bad, but maybe they're so overwhelmed they think they can't leave their desk to go have lunch with everyone. That's not good either. Right. We all need that break. So what is it about your workload that makes you think that you can't take that break and take care of yourself?
So what I'm hearing is indicators that are outside the norm for that individual.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
So if someone's normally quiet and they become overly talkative, that's a sign.
It could be,
and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anything just kind of out of the norm. And that's why I want us to kind of be champions of mental health with whoever we're with, right? I think we think about these things when it comes to our family, but sometimes our coworkers are our family. We spend a heck of a lot of time with them during the day. We get to know each other very well. So if something doesn't seem quite right, red flag, right? Or give it a day or two and you're like, oh, you know what? This has kind of been all week. It doesn't look like he's showered yet this week. Wonder if something's going on with him, right? So, and the great thing about this, Gio, is that if we have a good relationship with the people around us, we should be able to say to them, hey, everything okay with you? Like, are you doing okay? What's going on?
So that was actually, you've kind of answered my next question, which is how do you approach someone that you think needs help? Is it just simply as hey, do you need a hand? Do you need something? Do you want to talk? Do you want to go for coffee? Something along those lines?
All of those things. You know what? We're human. We're human. So put yourself in that person's place, right? If they're not doing very well, what are the things that I would be meaningful if somebody reached out and said to me, right? Let's not make a big deal about this, put them on the spot, make them uncomfortable. Let's just be real, genuine, sincere, right? Please don't call them out in front of a group of people, right? Find a time where the two of you can just have a chat off to the side and just be like, dude, not sure what's going on. Are you okay? I've noticed, don't say your hair's greasy and you look a mess. I don't think you've brushed your teeth in 5 days. Don't tell them that. Just say you seem not yourself. Right? Let's use our filter. Be kind, but be genuine and sincere. And in that, don't make this conversation happen while you're answering emails or staring at your phone. Put your phone down, look them in the eye, let them know that they're important to you and you're asking this for a reason. You truly care. And lots of times for someone who is really struggling, that's all that they need is for somebody to show up and take an interest and notice that there's something wrong. And they may not tell you their whole story, but they may, all of a sudden you may hear, you know what? Yeah, gosh, I got some really bad news last week, or this is going on with my son. He went off to university. He's really struggling. And but it's just that you open that door just a little bit. And lots of times that's all that somebody might need. And you might not be the expert, the person, but maybe you can help hold their hand or encourage them to find someone to talk to.
And I think it's the initial contact piece that we're looking for, because as long as you allow for that individual to talk to someone, if you're not the right individual in question, and I'm looking for it, like I'm a site super on site.
Yes.
I might not be the right person to talk to because, you know what, Corin, I see every day and I'm like, you good? No? Maybe you should talk to somebody. Here, call MedCore.
Right.
Yeah. And again, because it is somebody that we don't know, to your point, when you listen, you're just a third party there to vent, like to be the recipient of.
Absolutely. And maybe encourage them that, it doesn't have to be this way. And also shared experiences are an amazing thing, right? So I'm not saying make it all about you, but oftentimes, oh my gosh, I get it. I went through something similar. All of a sudden that person feels this. I'm not the only one. I'm not alone in this. Other people have gone through this before, and it can be encouraging for that person as well, right? It doesn't have to be this way. Things will turn around. There's always that person though that is like, oh, you think that's bad? You should hear my story. Don't be that guy.
No. Don't. I don't think one-upmanship works in this one, right?
No, it really doesn't. No.
You think you have it bad? Well, listen to me.
Totally. Anything that starts with the words "at least" That's all so bad. Like it all negates everything that you're going to say after the, well, at least you don't have this.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
oh, no, no,
Wow.
no.
So, before we go on to further discussions about mental illness and whatnot, we've got some great questions that came in.
Good.
Mr. Michael Mancini once again, and he,
Okay.
he starts off with a disclaimer, just so you know.
Oh boy.
He's not justifying the health effects to smoking, so right off the bat, but Corin, do you find that those who take smoke breaks are less anxious? And how
Mm.
can we change the stigma to taking care of yourself linked to those, I guess, take smoke breaks
Hmm.
or whatever you want to call them, but go for
Yeah.
an air break or whatever, a breathing
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
So I find that to be a very
Mm.
interesting one. So first off, two-part question. Do you find that those who take smoke breaks are less anxious?
You know what? I don't know that I've ever narrowed it down. Nobody's ever really shared with me if they're a smoker or not, to be honest with you.
Huh.
But that being said, when I sit here thinking about that, it's social for a lot of people. And my guess is in that time, if they're smoking with other people, they're either venting, getting something off their chest, vice versa, or they're just actually taking a break and talking about, the Oilers beating the Flames again last night, which, hello, thank you. Sorry, all of you there. I had to, I had to.
So just out of
But
curiosity, did the entire team call you to like vent before they went on the ice? Is
no,
that
I
why you're
wish
taking
so.
credit for the win?
I'm not taking any credit. I am just so stinking excited about this. But you know what I mean? Either way, they're either venting about things going on at the work site or they're talking about something completely separate. Either way, they're unloading or they're taking a break. So
Right.
that's a really, really, I've never thought about it, Michael. That's an amazing question, but I can see how it would be advantageous for sure. Not the smoking part.
I was gonna say, I don't think that
No,
Corin is
no, I'm not. I'm not.
advocating for
No,
smoking, but I do
no.
think again because it is a form of breathing, although
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
toxic air, but you are focusing on the cigarette, inhaling in, holding,
Yeah.
letting go out.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this is not
Yeah.
something that we
No,
the OGCA nor does Medcore approve that
no,
practice,
no.
but I think that to your point, it is again a way of you're stopping you're
Yeah.
taking that break, your
Yes.
feet are on the ground,
Yeah.
when you're I've never seen smokers stand on
No.
one foot or whatever, but
No. Do a
very
yoga pose while
do
they're
a yoga
sleeping.
pose.
I know.
That's interesting.
Try
That's now I have this visual of anyway,
it.
but so and I guess the second part of his question is
Yeah.
just as relevant, which is how do we change the stigma about taking a break for yourself? Is it
Yeah.
something that we can actually build into our safety culture?
Yep. Yes, 110%. I do it with people all of the time, clients, no matter what the industry is, and especially during COVID when everybody was working from home.
Right.
Okay, so we took breaks when we were all in the office. We talked at the water cooler, we stopped in and visited, but all of a sudden we're by ourselves. Nobody's monitoring our time. And for some reason, everybody thinks I've got to like pedal to the metal, prove it to my boss that I'm getting all my stuff done at home because I love being here so much. And yet people were not taking breaks. And so it's really advantageous to do so. I actually have an example of a client in the States who this young girl was fighting with her husband. She was working crazy overtime, evening and weekends, and she was just always behind in her work. And I asked her to describe her work day for me, and she did. And I said, where in there are your breaks? Like legally, we're entitled to take breaks, right? 15-minute breaks here and a lunchtime. She said, oh, I never do. I just grab something and I bring it right back, or I refill my coffee and I just sit in front of my desk. I don't have time. I couldn't possibly stop. I said, well, what you're doing is not working. So why don't we try something new? Why don't you actually find time tomorrow and the next day and the next day, put 15-minute break in there. And I want you to take a 20 or 30-minute lunch because you're entitled to it. And what I want you to do is I want you to actually go do anything else, get away from your computer. So I said to her, the weather was nice. I said, I want you to grab your dogs and an apple. And I want you to do one lap of the area you're in, right? Go do a lap of the crescent in 10 minutes and come back. But what I don't want you to do on that walk is think about work. I don't want you to be drafting an email in your head or thinking about what you're going to say to your boss in your meeting at 2:00. I want you to think about anything else. And she said, what if I can't? I said, perfect. Go count the cars. She's like, what? I said, honestly, for 10 minutes, I want you to count and only think about how many cars you see in your walk in those 10 minutes. She booked a session the next week and she's like, I can't even tell you how advantageous this has been and beneficial for me. She's like, I thought you were off your rocker when you told me to go count the cars. But she's like, you were right, because I've tried not doing it and I'm thinking about work. Okay. So she does this. She comes back. She's like, I got this. I got to spend time with my dog. I fueled my body with an apple. I got to see the sun. I breathed fresh air. And she's like, I am caught up in 1 week on all of my work. I'm not doing overtime because I'm taking breaks. This is our recharge. This is us plugging in to get through whatever else we've got going on the rest of the day. It just fuels us up a little bit. And so it's the complete opposite than what we think.
Interesting. And that kind of ties into a question from Majid here. He puts down, I noticed that in construction industry, fatigue management is not happening properly. And again, you touched upon it, working long hours or consecutive days.
Yep.
In the long term, this will end in either mental or health issues.
Yep.
What are the ways that you think will be helpful to enhance fatigue management via the employer? Do we tell our employer I'm going to go count cars, or I'm going to go count excavators, or how does it?
Go count
what do you suggest?
I love that. Would you please?
What do you suggest? Just out of curiosity.
So is he asking what the employer can do then, basically?
I think so. What I'm getting for, what are the ways that you think will be helpful to enhance fatigue management, or I guess bring light to fatigue management because of the fact that we are working long hours and consecutive days? So that, again, I think it becomes part of the safety culture. Now, Majida, if I'm not accurate in that question, please continue in the chat and we can clarify it for you. But I believe they're asking, how do you approach your employer and bring up fatigue management as, a relevant issue that needs to be dealt with?
I think you just say that. If your employer is a good leader and leads from the front, they're going to be open to hearing feedback like that. Hey, we're working long hours. We're working overtime. This is a stressful job. It's not just me. I'm speaking on behalf of my team or my group. I hear it all of the time when I'm out taking a smoke break. We're tired. What have you got for us? Okay. And then it is definitely up to the leader to hear that and take some action. So what does that look like? Are you going to do some group sessions or some training, provide some training on time management, on self-care, on taking some breaks, on setting some boundaries for yourself? Because lots of times we're very good at setting boundaries for other people and saying no, but we don't. We set our expectations that are unrealistic for ourselves. I know lots of people out there are going, oh, wow, that's me. It is absolutely, we're harder on ourselves than anybody, and we don't allow ourselves those breaks. So if your boss is saying, hey, no, you're entitled to a break, I encourage you all to take it, because we're not wrong here. If mental and emotional stress is not dealt with, it will manifest itself in physical ways in our bodies. And we don't want to get there. Let's manage it long before it gets to that point.
So can I'm want to interject here with an anecdotal kind of observation. And so this is something that I actually did. I was working in aerospace. I was working for Bombardier, and I had a team of about 10, and we were in the purchasing department. So it's constant, like, again, to your point, long hours, very stressful, nonstop. And I booked every Friday morning, 8 a.m. we had a staff meeting.
Yep.
And the very first one, you get the grumblings, 8 a.m. And I got called every name in the book. But when they did show up, instead of being in a boardroom, we had it kind of in the cubicles. They were kind of an open environment. We had it in the cubicles, and I had bought donuts, coffee. We had those big Costco muffins, and we sat there, and the staff meeting was, so Corin, how was your day? How's the family? How's everything going? And we spent an hour just chatting. Mm-hmm. Nothing to do with work.
Yeah. Nothing
to do with anything even remotely related to aircrafts or whatnot. But it was just an hour to chat. Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, other people from other departments were jealous because we would just sit there and chat for an hour. But I will tell you, they got more done by lunch on that Friday than other people would do all week. And it was all because they were allowed to decompress. So I can tell you from an owner's perspective, it's helpful to have it as part of your culture.
Yes.
To have it as part of, how you'd go about doing things. Sometimes you just need to allow your staff to vent. And if it's, at you, so be it. Take it.
Yeah.
You'll get some worthwhile things, and they could do it either en masse or one-on-one.
Yeah.
Whatever they feel comfortable with.
The thing about that, though, Giovanni, is that it creates connection, not just to the leader, but to each other.
Right.
And when you've got that, they feel that you are now a safe place for them to come and say when they're feeling overwhelmed or they're feeling fatigued. You've created that environment already, so that conversation shouldn't be too scary a thing.
Okay, so from a leader standpoint, what are the tactics, like other than just, this one-on-one meeting, what else can they do to help, I guess, your coworkers that may be facing mental health issues or are not at the same level of mental wellness as yourself? Is it other than, okay, we've heard about breathing, we heard about talking, what else is there?
Yep. Number one is that they have that safe space to share. Because what you can't do better if you don't know better as a leader. So having a good pulse on your team and that connection, I don't think there's any relationship. I don't think there's anything more important than that. If that is in place, your people will share 100%. But also you need to know as the leader, what supports are available to my people, because we know that leader is not the subject matter expert in mental health and well-being. What does my company provide to my people, to myself, and to my peers to help support them in their mental health and well-being? And then if you've created that space and you do a check-in with them, whether that's in a big group or not, however that looks, that opportunity comes about, and you ask them how they're doing, likely they will share or open up a little bit. And that's a perfect opportunity for the leader to say, we got you. We got you. Mm-hmm. Right? It's important to us that you're feeling well. And if you're interested, here's a list of supports that are available to you. If you need any assistance or you're scared to reach out and book, let me know. I'll walk you through it. I'll help you. So being armed with the information, we don't have to be the experts. We just need to be present, available, interested, genuine, sincere, and be knowledgeable about what the supports are and help them get them if they need them.
So, I guess in tying with the tactics and the supports, Kyle brings up a great point about physical fitness outside of the workplace, how it plays into mental health. And so therefore a healthy body equals a healthy mind, right? Again, and being a huge advocate of physical fitness, I agree with you, Kyle, 100%. And that could be as easy as going for a walk, going for a run. I mentioned the heavy bag at the onset of this, or strenuous physical activity, just to get us to sweat and to be in the moment. Because if you're bench pressing a couple 100 pounds, you're only thinking about that. You're not thinking about, I wonder if I can draft an email because this could kill you, right? So that's the way it works.
Yes.
And he goes on to note that gym programs, subsidized fitness to employees, et cetera, are all great ideas a company can implement.
Absolutely, they are. Exercise is the number one form of stress relief. Plain and simple.
Is number two drinking? No, I just want.
I don't know, actually. That's the one I focus on. No, I'm going to actually say no.
Okay, I'm joking on this one.
You're just numbing stuff there at that point.
Yes, I agree.
But you're not wrong, right? Exercise, absolutely. You're distracted. Physically, you're doing something for yourself, but it's also a major release. Like you were talking about punching that bag. So I actually talked to somebody the other day whose goal is to get physically active. Well, the first thing when we're setting a goal is that it has to be achievable. So if you go from 0 and you think you're going to walk around your block or you're going to run a kilometer every day this week, it's not attainable. You're going to set yourself up for failure. You're going to feel horrible about yourself. So we actually I said to her, why don't you go from your house to the end of the block and back today? Well, that's not going to do a whole lot. I said, well, it gets you out there. You laced up your running shoes.
Right.
You went out the front door, right? So maybe you do that for a couple of days. Maybe then you go across the street and you go 4 houses down and you come back, right? And it's just those little bits. And all of a sudden, she's like, okay, I was supposed to go to the end of the second block today, but I was loving it so much because I've been doing this now for a week. I did the whole, I went all the way around the block. Like she killed her goal, right? But she felt the benefit of those small changes and it motivated her to do more.
In weightlifting, we call it progressive resistance. You incrementally increase the weight and your body gets adapted to that weight increase.
And it's not only the walking she's doing, but the habit you're creating. The fact that you put on laced up the shoes and walked out the door is step one. Right? You didn't come up with 12 excuses and hit the chips and dip and sat down to watch the ball game. You put on your shoes and you walked out the door and you did as much as you wanted or you set your goal for.
You notice Corin mentioned the ball game and not the Oilers, because the Oilers are playing, then you sit in front of the couch watching chips and dip. But
I also sit down and watch the Blue Jays, so that's my favorite. Yeah.
I have another question from Brad, which is actually fantastic. Ties right into what you were talking about. They are interested in intentionally reviewing health and wellness with fellow employees on construction site. What have you found to be more effective, a one-to-one or a group session?
Ooh, both. Oh. Start out with the group. 100%. I have no hesitation about this. There's safety in numbers. Okay. So when we're talking about normalizing, talking about mental health, this is how you do it. You get the group together. Okay. You're not one-on-one. You don't feel put on the spot, but you make it relaxed and informal, and we're just having a conversation, no different than you and I are today. And all of a sudden people are more comfortable. They may share, they may not, but then what happens after that is it opens that door for them to say, hey, I maybe want to talk a little bit more about that with somebody that kind of resonated with me. And I wonder if I need to do a little bit of work there, or this is a thing I maybe need to address in my life. So that's where I would start for sure.
Now, would you do one group session or a couple just to get it started? Like, I'm just curious, for the audience members, do you just call a group meeting and say, we're going to have a vent session, or we're going to talk about like how do you structure it?
Yeah, the first one I would do, let's see what the buy-in is, right? And the more that those things are promoted from the top down, the better the buy-in is from the employees. This is important. They've set time aside. They want us to be well. You may have better attendance, but do the first one, super informal. Let's just talk. No different than you were. But then maybe out of that meeting, some different hot topics arise. So this is what we do actually in what the service I provide is I can see within a company if there's a certain department who is struggling or a certain level of management that are struggling. And then when we see some hot topics, we can actually create a group session around that. So no different for this. Oh, a lot of people are having trouble with time management. Maybe our next talk is going to be about time management. I just have the space to kind of air that stuff. And now you know what are the specific struggles people are having.
So I guess we can have this meeting under the auspices of health and safety, right? Yeah. So this is we're doing a health and safety. We're doing a check-in.
Yep.
Right. I just want to know, how's everyone doing? Mm-hmm. How are you feeling? What's going on? Are you good with the conditions on the site, or like is that kind of like how you would lead into it type thing?
Totally, absolutely. Right. And you know what? I actually really liked your introduction. Let's get to know each other. I love that. Because there is something to being said about saying, hey guys, I don't know if anybody knew, my son just went off to college last week and it was a big deal for us. And all of a sudden, oh my gosh, the worst day, my heart was breaking, right? Everybody, you've got connection. And out of that comes more openness and willingness to share about some of the stuff that's happening at work, because this is now a safe place to do so.
Right. And you're allowing for that connectivity, both from the employee to the employer, but employee to employee as well.
Exactly. Peer to
so
peer.
that actually gives you kind of a synergistic effect, right? Overall.
Yeah.
And if you've got, and I'm speaking to the audience here, if you've got questions about how to, address these things, and perhaps you don't have the wherewithal to do it because you're not, up to the level of, say, Corin is. But luckily we have an affinity program through the OGCA, and MedCore is an affinity partner. They will assist, and it's linked to kind of an employee and assistant program. It's not to supersede an employee assistance program. It actually is kind of the precursor to. It's kind of diffuse the bomb before it goes boom.
Yep.
Right. And that's when you actually go into the employee assistance program. Medcore offers these services, and you get direct access to a human being, not a computer. Right. And I think it's important. One of the reasons that we connected with Medcore was because of that aspect, but because of the fact that we could do more benefit just in a precursory way of doing things, as opposed to waiting for an employee to then have a breakdown or be exhausted. Again, we talked about fatigue, right? And not be able to come to work. And then, and again, I'm not necessarily quantifying in a strictly productivity standpoint, but if you have absenteeism, you will have a lack of productivity. Your schedule gets disrupted. If you have a workforce that is of sound mind and of sound body, then you're actually going to be able to adhere to the schedule that you have going, and everyone is present, and everyone, knows that they're working in the same direction. Kind of like the Oilers they were all playing in the same direction, right? To win the game. Not so much like the Leafs, but anyway, that's another story altogether. Again, I think we beat the hockey analogies to death on this one.
Yeah, we might have.
But I do want to take this opportunity now. We are just a couple of minutes left. This has been a great, again, conversation. We really take our webinars seriously, but I like to have this informality as opposed to this rigid structure, because I think we get more out of it when we're actually just talking. And I want to thank all of the audience members that participated with their questions. They've been brilliant. Just before we cap off and close, are there any other questions, comments? Does anyone have a burning desire to reach out? We have, I believe in the chat, Sabrina put up a link to our Affinity partnership with Medcore. And if you need any information or whatnot, please reach out to them directly. It's very helpful to have, again, from our standpoint, a program. Thank you, Stephanie, for listening. We just got to thank you for this conversation.
Awesome.
and a blushy happy face. That's very nice.
No,
you know what though? I'm unabashed when it comes down to my support of mental wellness. I've been very forthcoming about the fact that I've got a daughter who suffers from anxiety, and it was debilitating at a point in time when she was younger. So much so that, you as a parent almost feel like you don't have the capacity to deal with something like this. and I can tell you that simply being there, sometimes it wasn't even me having to talk, just simply being there. She felt presence. It was a separation anxiety. Just being there and her knowing that I'm there. You know what? That connectivity, we would watch TV and she would hold my hand. And just that that knowing that I have someone else that is kind of my anchor to rely upon is sometimes that all we need. And I think Corin is hit upon it very succinctly, when it's a lot of times, these big gruff guys on a construction site, and women as well. Not so much big and gruff, but women and men on construction sites, they think that they have to act a certain way because they are construction workers. And I think the conversation has to come back to the fact that you are human first. Okay. You're not made of steel. You're not infallible. COVID will affect you regardless if you're, 300 pounds of muscle or 90 pounds soaking wet. Illnesses will get you if your system is low. And if you're mentally low, then you're, again, sound body, sound mind, you're going to be physically low. It's the interconnection is there. So if there are no other questions, I'll turn this over for the last word from Corin. Oh, what's this? Oh, this is cool. So we got Alexandra. I love the idea that it needs to be in the fit for duty checklist. Talking about mental health does not need to be formal. It simply needs to be talked about. Thank you. You're very welcome. And I think this is one of the reasons why we didn't have that formality to the webinar today. I'm going to let Corin, I'll let you finish off with any words of wisdom so that we can close off today.
Words of wisdom. I don't know. I just really, really thank you again for this conversation. I was told the other day that we don't want to talk about destigmatizing mental health anymore. This is what I was told from a physician. And so normalizing talking about mental health. And I like that. I actually really like it. I can't believe that we're still in the year 2022 and that there is still a stigma around mental health and putting our hands up and feeling like we're weaker or less than if we're struggling with something. Because the truth is, Gio, you hit it on the head. We're all human. We're all here juggling work, life, family, emotions, loss, trauma, whatever it is, we all face it. And some days we're at the top of our game and some days we're not. So whatever we can do for ourselves to recharge, plug in, be connected, fill our buckets, fill your tank, whatever analogy you want to use about it, it is not selfish to do so. It's self-aware. There's a difference. So, yeah.
I'd like to add to that for those participating on the seminar and those that will watch the webinar moving forward, you're not alone.
Not alone.
You're not without resources. This is not something that's insurmountable that you have to deal with by yourself. Mental wellness is a communal thing. Think of it like when you go to the gym and you get somebody to help you spot.
Yeah.
You know what? You can move that weight, but you got somebody just to keep an eye on you, just in case. You can get through this, and sometimes maybe you just need a spotter. And if you need, Corin is apparently the best spotter out there. So when it comes down to mental wellness, I would highly advise that you reach out to MedCore for any assistance that you need. And
Absolutely.
with that, we're going to close off this session. Again, Corin, I can't thank you enough, even though you did rub it in our face about the Oilers. That's irrelevant at this point in time.
You know you would have to if the shoe was on the other foot.
If the Leafs ever win, hopefully in my lifetime, then I will be sure to rub it in your face.
Yes, but, and I will take it graciously. It's fine. It's my turn.
It's been incredible. Thank you, all the participants. Your questions were brilliant. We're looking forward to doing this again. And remember, May is Mental Health Month.
That's right.
So take care of each other if you can. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for everything. Take care.